Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the English Daily Book Summary YouTube channel. In order to not stop learning, listen to an English book summary every day for free.
Robert N. Levine, A Geography of Time, on Tempo, Culture, and the Pace of Life. As Albert Einstein once said, time is relative. Now, you might think of this kind of relativity strictly in terms of physics, but then again, we all know that an hour spent in a doctor's waiting room feels a lot different than an hour spent in the comfort of your living room. This temporal relativity applies culturally as well. If you've ever traveled internationally, or even experienced different parts of the US and can compare cities like Boston and Los Angeles, then you likely know how different regions have their own unique pace of living. As a result, people from different cultures have different relationships to time. In this blink, we'll look at different examples of, as the author puts it, the geography of time. We'll see which cities are faster or more leisurely paced than others, and which factors play a role in determining these cultural characteristics. We'll also take a quick look at the history of time itself, or rather, how punctuality and clock watching became such a big part of Western cultures. It should be noted that this book was written in the 1990s, so some of the data and examples may not be as fresh as they once were, but it doesn't change the insights we can gain from this research. Blink number 1. Every culture has its time. It may seem odd at first to think about culture in terms of time, but if you think about it, the pace of life is one of the most recognizable and defining characteristics of any cultural region. After all, it's about more than just speed. It's about rhythm, duration, and how in sync we are with the people around us. It's the tempo of how we experience the world. Tempo, which we usually think about in terms of music, is at the heart of it all. Just like a song played at different speeds will conjure completely different emotions, the same tasks and experiences feel vastly different depending on how quickly or slowly they unfold. One person might rush through a novel in a day, while another will savor it for weeks. A tourist might zip through Europe, quickly bouncing from city to city, while a backpacker will mosey along for months trying to soak in every detail. Likewise, some cultures will prioritize work above all else. For others, it will rank below spending time with friends and family. Tempo is deeply personal and differs from one person or culture to the next. If you've done some traveling, you've probably run into a tempo clash. For instance, there are places where waiting seems to be a national pastime. Waiting for buses, for meals, for meetings to start. An American used to a strict schedule might fume when a ticket counter in India closes right as they reach the window, while the locals will just shrug it off and settle in for a leisurely lunch. In Brazil, a person in a hurry might get a kind but firm calma, calma, a reminder that not everything is worth rushing. The author discovered this firsthand, and after working in Brazil for a while, he became fascinated by these different cultural tempos. Eventually, he found a way of measuring and comparing the pace of life in different places around the world. For starters, he found that the wealthier a place, the faster its tempo. While industrialized nations tend to be driven by a time-is-money mentality, there's also the double-edged sword of technology. Whether it's the vacuum cleaner or the personal computer, throughout history, technological innovations have been pitched to us as time-saving tools. But in actuality, they only increase the expectations for how much we can accomplish in an hour or in a day, making us feel more pressed for time than ever. Perhaps it shouldn't come as a surprise that people in industrialized nations work more hours and have less free time than their counterparts in less developed societies. It's also not surprising that big cities tend to move faster than small towns, and that warmer places tend to have slower paces of life, while colder regions like Switzerland and Germany are some of the fastest moving cultures in the world. We'll get into more about these results in the following sections. But first, let's look at how our relationship to time changed forever with one relatively recent development. Blink number 2, the recent dawning of clock time. It's kind of amazing to consider the fact that for most of human history, there were no clocks, no schedules, just people living by the rhythms of nature. Appointments were made at sunset, and the day began at the rooster's crow. But that all changed with the invention of timekeeping devices. It started with sundials, sticks in the ground, casting shadows to mark time. The Egyptians refined them, and the Greeks increased their popularity. The drawback, of course, was that they were pretty useless when the sun disappeared. That's where water clocks came in, measuring time by the steady drip of water. Later, people got creative, burning candles, incense, and tracking sand in an hourglass. Then, in the 14th century, came the real game changer, mechanical clocks. The first ones didn't even have hands, just bells that chimed, telling people it was time to pray. But by the late 1600s, Galileo's pendulum discovery led to increased accuracy, and by 1700, the Dutch engineer Christian Huygens had built a timepiece accurate to within 10 seconds a day. Not long after is when people began talking about speed and punctuality in ways they never had before. By the 19th century, clocks moved from town squares to homes, then to pockets, and finally to wrists. But this wasn't without pushback. Some critics dubbed the wristwatch the handcuffs of our time. As clocks became more precise in the 1800s, so did life itself. It kind of had to. Crazily enough, in the 1860s, time was pretty chaotic. There were around 70 different time zones in the US alone. This wasn't sustainable, as more trains, factories, and schools were emerging. The trains needed schedules, factories needed shifts, and suddenly, clock time ruled all. The railroad companies played a big role in standardizing time. By 1883, they established the 4 US time zones still used today, and by 1918, the government made them law. Some resisted, calling standardized time a monstrous fraud and a swindle. There were towns that fought back, insisting on keeping their own time. People recognized that clock time hid something more sinister and inhuman. Beyond convenience, it was a tool for control. An American by the name of Frederick Taylor popularized the idea of efficiency engineering. This involved tracking and timing every movement a worker made, down to a fraction of a second. At the same time, punctuality became a moral virtue. If you were late, it was seen as a sign of laziness or even low character. The general consensus became, if you wanted to rise to the middle class, owning a good watch was just as important as a good suit. But despite the objections and resistors, clock time has proven hard to shake. Instead, it's only gotten more powerful as we can now measure things in nanoseconds. Still, you might wonder, are we really built for clock time? Will we one day feel nostalgic for a time when time itself felt more human? Blink number 3. Timing is personal. The shift into clock time has had a pretty big effect on us. While some people have a personality that suits moving fast, be it talking quickly or eating quickly, a lot of us can end up with a condition known as hurry sickness. We feel restless whenever forced to slow down, a compulsion to move fast even when there's no real reason. It's all a bit messy because our perception of time isn't as precise as a clock. Rather, it's shaped by mood, surroundings, and even body temperature. If you've ever been bedridden with a fever, you'll probably felt like time is dragging. Likewise, people in cold environments often feel like time is speeding up. This might explain why cultures in hotter climates tend to move at a slower pace. Their sense of time makes everything else seem fast. Even in normal conditions, humans are bad at estimating time. Most people misjudge the length of an hour by at least 10%, and without clocks they struggle to gauge even a full day. Personality also plays a role. Extroverts estimate time more accurately than introverts, and people with depression often feel trapped in slow motion, while manic individuals experience time racing ahead. Time doesn't just distort, it can stretch. Athletes in the zone describe everything slowing down, giving them more time to react. Artists and musicians also get so lost in their work that hours pass unnoticed. Perhaps most startling of all are the documented cases of hypnotized subjects. When told they have unlimited time, they can suddenly complete complex tasks in a matter of minutes. But the worst kind of time stretching is boredom, where every second drags, making us feel stuck and powerless. As a result, waiting has become more than an inconvenience. It's a reflection of power. Status dictates who waits. Powerful people wait less. And on the flip side of that coin, arriving late to an appointment is a sign of success. The longer people will wait for you, the more important you appear. At the same time, waiting can be an act of generosity. Giving someone your time is a form of respect. Whether standing in line, waiting for an appointment, or being put on hold, every moment spent waiting is a reminder of who holds power and what we truly value. Time is money, or so the saying goes. But it's also a powerful tool used by societies to keep people in line, both literally and figuratively. Blink number 4, the Fast Five. Now that we know about the kind of influence clock time has had on us, as well as other internal and external factors, let's look at the research the author and his team did to try and measure cultural tempos around the world. It came down to 3 simple tests: how fast people walked 60 feet in busy downtown areas, how quickly postal clerks completed a standard transaction, and how accurate public clocks were. With this approach, they gathered data from 31 countries and found some surprising results. The top 5 fastest countries were Switzerland, Ireland, Germany, Japan, and Italy. The bottom 5, in descending order, were Syria, El Salvador, Brazil, Indonesia, and Mexico. What immediately stood out was that the American impression of Western Europe, the leisurely La Dolce Vita approach to life, with its images of lounging at cafes and savoring long meals, might be something of a myth. But then again, speed at work doesn't always translate to a life of stress. One key difference between cultures is how they balance work and leisure. Even though Italy ranked high in worker speed, the average post office was open for just 5 hours a day. In Japan, however, the work week is incredibly long, averaging 2,159 hours per year. That's 202 more hours than in the US, and a staggering 511 more hours than in Germany. Put in perspective, the average Japanese worker spends over 3 months longer at work each year compared to their German counterparts. These days, European labor unions continue to fight against increased working hours, which is a fight that the US largely gave up decades ago in favor of higher salaries and job security. So Western Europe stands apart in its approach to time off. The French enjoy a minimum of 5 weeks of paid vacation, and some Swedes get up to 8. Paid maternity leave and even bereavement leave is also more generous in Europe. Japan, meanwhile, has an even more intense culture of time pressure. A 1991 survey found that 70% of Japanese people felt they were constantly rushed, a sentiment equally shared by men and women. But it should be said that it's hardly accurate to suggest that an entire country will fit comfortably into one study. While New York City represented the USA in national comparisons, the pace of life varies significantly across America. In studying 36 American cities, they analyzed walking speeds, bank teller efficiency, wristwatch usage, and how fast people spoke. As expected, the Northeast dominated the list of fastest cities, with Boston, Buffalo, and New York City leading the pack. Indeed, the results confirmed many stereotypes. Regionally, the Northeast was followed by the Midwest, the South, and then the laid-back West. California cities had the slowest pace overall, with Los Angeles ranking dead last. Angelenos walked at a leisurely pace, took their time at the bank, and spoke more slowly than nearly everyone else. Culture shapes time perception, and time perception shapes culture. Some places prioritize speed and efficiency, while others embrace a slower rhythm of life. Whether that's a good or bad thing? Well, let's continue that conversation in the final sections. Blink number 5, controlling a healthy tempo. In these final sections, we're going to flip the script a bit. Rather than looking at why certain cultures are faster or more leisurely paced than others, we're going to look at what happens to the culture or the people in it as a result of the tempo. You don't have to dig too deep to notice that speed has profound effects on how people live. A city's tempo influences not just how quickly residents walk or talk, but also their health, happiness, and even their generosity. The link between fast living and heart disease is well documented. People with a high-strung competitive mindset, what psychologists call type A personalities, are significantly more prone to coronary heart disease than their laid-back type B counterparts. And just as individuals can be type A, so can entire cities. The data shows that places with the fastest pace of life also have the highest rates of heart disease. That said, reality is nothing if not complicated. Paradoxically, type A cities also tend to rank high in happiness. You might be wondering, shouldn't all that stress make people miserable? Well, it turns out that the productivity and economic prosperity of these places offers its own rewards, like material comforts, opportunities, and a sense of accomplishment. All of this provides people with a greater sense of control over their lives. That feeling of shaping one's own destiny is a powerful source of happiness. While slower places offer more peace, they don't necessarily offer satisfaction in life. But before we move on, let's look at one more interesting statistic, this one examining the connection between pace and generosity. One might expect that in Type B cities, where people seemingly have more time, people would be more helpful. In some cases, that's true. In the US, the Southeast, which generally has a slower pace of life, ranked highest in acts of kindness, such as stopping to help a stranger. Meanwhile, the Type A Mecca of New York ranked dead last. But the pattern isn't consistent. California has some of the country's slowest cities, yet its residents were among the least likely to help. The same inconsistencies appear internationally. Rio de Janeiro, known for its relaxed pace, is filled with generous people, while fast-moving Amsterdam is not. However, Copenhagen, despite its quick tempo, remains both highly generous and generally happy. When it comes to these kinds of health and happiness contradictions, one of the most revealing places is Japan. The country is known for its relentless work ethic, yet its rates of coronary heart disease remain remarkably low. Unlike in Western cultures, where work is often tied to individual success, in Japan, it's seen as a duty to the collective good. This collectivist mindset changes the emotional experience of work, reducing the isolation that fuels stress. Studies show that people with strong social support networks recover faster from illness and experience less pain. Japanese workers, surrounded by equally dedicated colleagues, benefit from this protective effect. So, while the fast-paced cultures of the West often breed hostility and cutthroat competition, traits linked to heart disease, Japanese workers push forward with a shared sense of purpose rather than aggression. However, Japan's work culture isn't without its costs. Exhaustion and burnout are prevalent. Some workers even experience holiday syndrome, where they fall ill the moment they stop working. The lesson here is that speed itself isn't the problem, it's how speed is managed. If it's approached with the sense that everyone is working toward a collective good rather than ruthless competition, it leads to a healthier environment. For Western cultures struggling to balance ambition with well-being, Japan offers an intriguing model. Maybe the goal isn't necessarily to slow down, but to move fast, together. Blink number 6. Being time literate and adaptable. Let's end this blink by doing two things. Taking a look at how you can be more skilled at navigating the time across different cultures, a skill known as time literacy, and then turn our attention to how you can master time in your own environment. Every culture believes its approach to time is the right one, but in reality, there's no universal standard, just different ways of doing things, each with its pros and cons. Understanding these differences is crucial for navigating the complexities of time across cultures. As we saw in Japan, Their fast-paced work culture only makes sense when you understand the broader cultural values behind it. One of the biggest lessons we can learn is that despite the prevalence of clock time in the West, some cultures still rely on event time. When life unfolds via event time, there is no strict schedule. A meeting ends when it is over, no sooner or later. Mealtime starts whenever the previous task comes to its natural conclusion. There are cultures in Africa, Mexico, and South America where event time is the primary mode of living, but it's also prevalent in Type A cities like Japan, where meetings don't have the same emphasis on punctuality or even the expectation that people will stay until the end. So it's important to recognize that punctuality doesn't carry the same weight around the world. Likewise, the boundary between work and social time often varies. In the US, the workday is mostly business with a bit of socializing, while in countries like India, work and socializing are more evenly balanced. In Japan, work is social time. What might seem inefficient or frustrating to an outsider often has deep meaning within a culture. The key is not to judge what you don't fully understand. This leads to another important lesson. Knowing the rules will only get you so far. The best way to adapt to a new time culture is by living it and experiencing it firsthand. But there's more than one reason to travel. As many people will attest, being immersed in another culture often allows us to gain a deeper understanding about our own culture. By understanding different approaches to time and the various ways life can be structured, we can then take those insights with us and gain more control over our own experiences. If there's one lesson to learn from all of this, it's that knowing how to adapt to different paces is a valuable skill. For people from slow-paced cultures, learning to speed up can open doors to new opportunities. Conversely, those from fast-paced cultures can benefit from slowing down, fostering richer relationships, and gaining a greater sense of balance. And that's the key: finding balance. Psychologists have found that too much time pressure is stressful, but too little can lead to boredom and stagnation. The sweet spot lies in the middle, where people feel engaged without being overwhelmed. The most adaptable people can shift between fast and slow paces, depending on the situation, like a musician who plays at different tempos. The goal in life isn't to follow the ticking of a clock, but to find the right rhythm for each moment. Understand that there's more than one rhythm to life, and be the master of your own time. In this Blink to a Geography of Time by Robert N. Levine, you've learned that time isn't just something we measure. It's something we experience, and different cultures perceive and structure it in vastly different ways. Some societies operate on clock time, where schedules dictate daily life with precision, while others follow event time, ditching the schedule to allow activities to unfold naturally. The pace of life varies across locations, with fast-paced environments often leading to higher stress and heart disease, yet at the same time bringing economic success and personal satisfaction. Other contradictions reveal that high-tempo work cultures can be healthier when focused on collectivist goals. Understanding these kinds of cultural motivations is key to navigating social and professional interactions across the globe. It can also help your own satisfaction in life. The healthiest approach isn't choosing between fast or slow, but learning when to shift gears. Ultimately, mastering time, whether by embracing efficiency or slowing down for deeper connections, allows people to lead more fulfilling and adaptable lives.